The organizing committee have took a lot of inputs after the first one, and I think they've done a really good job of adapting the program. I learned a lot more about different areas of photonics than I did last year. It seemed to be more optical communication focused last year. And so my main takeaways were how other businesses are dealing with geopolitical issues, seeing how other companies change strategies and how nimble and quick they are. And I also like the fact that there were a lot of new companies, big companies that came in and presented in different areas of photonics. So like Edmund Optics, Thor Labs, IPG even. So I thought that was really good. It was really interesting to see how these companies are having to adapt in these times of all the geopolitical stuff, including tariffs.
All 8 keynotes from the Global Photonics Economic Forum 2025 are already published in full online. Now it's the turn of the 7 panel sessions. Remember, posts on LinkedIn only carry the first 15 minutes. The full session is on YouTube.
We really wanted to have a panel discussion today that talks about M&As, that helps companies to the next stage of development to accelerate. And for that, I could not find a better moderator in the world than the person who has enabled most M&As in the photonic industry on the last decade. Welcome to stage, Mike Powell, Renevo Capital.
Thank you, Jose. No pressure from that introduction. So this panel's kind of about, as photonics companies grow, how do you scale? And how do you scale those companies into positive cash flow? I mean, that actually is the fundamental point of a company, to end up generating cash and profits. So, as Jose said, I'm Mike Powell. The company I run is Renevo Capital. We're what's considered a boutique bank. So we do a lot of matchmaking in M&A transactions and also later stage fundraisers. And we spend an awful lot of time thinking about this scaling issue, scaling into positive cash flow, because for us, that's the fundamental value inflection point in a company. There are many value inflection points, but that's the fundamental value inflection point. I know in the European Commission, they think a lot in terms of technology readiness levels. And this is what's different about technology companies compared to ordinary companies. You've got to master and control a technology that gives you something that you can monetize via a product or a service. And we talk about these a lot, and I've just thrown up here a graph which says, here are the technology readiness levels, and roughly put what the different funding rounds are that go against those various technology readiness levels. So as we go through this panel, if you could keep those in mind. And also, don't take it as absolutely read that you do a B series when you hit TRL 7. It's much more complicated than that. So I'd like to pull the panel up. They're very different companies. They're all at very, very different stages along the pathway. And what we're going to be talking about is, where they sit on that path and what the sort of key elements are. I've got 2 from Europe. 3 from Europe, 2 from the US, and 1 from Israel. And I'm hoping a panel that we can talk about, the real operational issues that you face and sort of where those hurdles are on the pathway to positive cash flow. So if I could invite the panel to the stage, please. I think there should be 6 of us. Yep. So, panel, I think we'll just go my left to right, one at a time. If you can give a very brief introduction to your company. If you can run through name, company, where you think you are on that technology readiness level, and also what does volume mean for you going forward. So Pouya, if we can start with you, please.
Sure, yes. I'm Pouya Dianat. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Quantum Computing, Inc. or QCI. QCI is a quantum photonics technology company with multiple product lines, from quantum computing, quantum communication, and quantum capture or sensing, basically, as well as a thin film lithium niobate foundry or fab service that we have to offer. And that's basically the backbone of all the technology, the quantum photonics technology that we have. The volume for us, depending on each of these product lines, is different. But the vision and the goal is to bring the quantum basically to masses and putting quantum in the hands of a billion. So that's the vision that is driving. And I'm putting the number billion there. So that would give you an idea of what the volume would look like for us.
And I'm presuming that somewhere along that path where you're going to get deeply involved in mergers and acquisitions as you tuck things in.
Yes, that is correct. And actually, we've done the series of financing and fundraising recently, and one of the stated goals are merger and acquisitions, but it has to be very strategic and targeted to our eventual vision, while also helping the mission of the company and also bringing revenue from the company.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep. Stefan? Couldn't be more different, I think.
Absolutely. My name is Stefan Hackl. I'm the CEO of Luxinar and Iradion. So the two companies joined forces a little bit more than a year ago. And together we are providing laser sources for industrial customers with an extremely long lifetime. And we're focused on CO2 sources, scaling from 25 watt up to a kilowatt, as well as solid state lasers, nanosecond, femtosecond lasers. And we supply to a wide range of customers. We're probably in the range of 7,000 lasers per year right now. And in terms of technology readiness level, probably a bit more on the upper side here in the panel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Herwig van Hove. I'm a co-founder and investor in Thema Foundries. Our aim is to become a large-scale OSAT and 3.5 focused photonic foundry based on the site of the old Belgium in Belgium. And as far as size of the market is concerned, we came from the other end. We talked to end customers, and I think the market for photonics is ready for main stage.
Yeah, and I think this is a really interesting point. I mean, it's very easy to think of companies in terms of a product, a physical thing. Well, there is a physicality to your product, but it's also a service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, my name is Yaniv. I'm the CEO and founder of NewPhotonics. We are now scaling from production to mass production of our NPG family of photonic chips. What's unique in our chips is that it's integration of lasers, modulators, and we also integrated into the PIC also our OSP, optical signal processing. This is the new standard of the LPO, or how we call it LPO Plus, that completely replaced the need for the DSP. And we are scaling to mass production now.
Okay, many thanks.
My name is Mahesh Krishnaswamy. I'm the founder and CEO of Taara. This is a recent spin-out from Google's Moonshot factory. This is the same group that works on innovative technologies like self-driving car, which is Waymo, or drone-based delivery. And so we are focused on solving the problem of connectivity using free space optics or wireless optical communications. And we are currently having a product that's called Lightbridge that is being deployed in over a dozen plus countries. And we just raised a Series A, and we are also working on the next generation technology.
Yes, good morning. My name is Philippe. I'm the CEO of ESTEL, a company we set up last year in February, and we're a bit different than the other person here because we bring back sovereignty in Europe. That means that we are designing and producing optical transceivers. As you know, 97% of these products today are made in Asia. And due to the request and the geopolitical issue, the goal is really to bring back this expertise on the design and also on the production in Europe by using the European ecosystem. It's really the goal. It's to really play with all the players because we are agnostic of the optical engine, that we don't design optical engine. And we are working with all the designers who are present, mainly in Europe.
Thanks for that, Philippe. That's a theme I think we're going to come back to quite a lot on this panel. But where I'd like to go next is kind of like down to sort of like the real nitty-gritty of day to day. along the panel again. It's one thing when you wake up in the morning, where you are on that journey, and you're all in very different places on that journey. What's the one thing you think, I've got to solve this problem? And what's the solution you're looking to put in place for that problem? So, when you wake up in the morning, what's the one thing that hops into your mind?
As a publicly traded company, QCI is in a special position because we are beholden to our shareholders every quarter. So we need to show growth and deliver some revenue. At the same time, we have to execute on our vision. And this is a very challenging, the road to our vision is challenging. There are lots of technologies that need to be invented, lots of proof of concepts that needs to get done. At the same time, we need to show performance to the market, and for the trust that they've put in us, we have to deliver on that.
Yeah.
So you're asking me what keeps me awake at night is to have the balance between execution on the roadmap while at the same time showing the performance and immediate return for our investors. So that is a game that we are playing, and the balance that we need to make.
I was less hoping for keep you awake at night, more energized in the morning. What do I tackle?
So like I said, I think what is going to the next immediate things that we need to do is for us to do the technology demonstration, going from the TRL level that we are to the higher ones, and going from step by step, going from the initial demo and showing incremental improvement in a very short period of time. That is the main goal that we are focusing on.
Understood. We're going from sort of like super early stage to later stage. I can imagine it's very different what you first think of in the morning when you wake up, Stefan.
Yes, for us, I mean, we're still in a PMI, so I think that's changing the game a little bit. And given the current uncertainty in the economy overall, it's finding the right balance on how can we adopt our go-to-market strategy, because we're operating in similar fields. So the acquisition was done to really expand a complementary product portfolio. But at the same time, how can we bundle the resources? How can you find those operational synergies, as we're all also concentrating on the cost aspects of the business? And I think finding the right balance between this strategic orientation on the market side and the execution on the internal processes, that's what keeps us busy at the moment and what we're actively working on.
Okay. And Herwig, I think you're doing something sort of very impressive with Thema. Particularly given that it sort of comes out of what was Belgan that didn't work quite so well. So this seems like quite a substantial challenge. So what's on your mind first thing in the morning?
That's a good question. So Europe has had a tendency to back a lot of research, creating enormous amounts of innovation. Great, but also creating a lack of standard, which this industry desperately needs, especially for companies like ourselves, would be a major plus to find more direction. And a second point that was mentioned on the panel yesterday as well is where Europe still lags behind other regions in the world is the sort of decisiveness and the speed of decisiveness. I think they're improving, and I think there's really light at the end of the tunnel. But what it will require from us as a sector is collaboration rather than just pure competition. And that's easy to say, but it's building alliances is not a straightforward endeavor.
And Yaniv, for yourself, I mean, you sound like you're sort of like poised on super high volume, but what's the reality?
Yeah, our problem today that we have a very nice backlog, but to scale the production, it's a real challenge. And my first concern is to get the wafers on time from the foundries. But then I have a completely new project. I call it the flying wafers. I need to fly those wafers all around the world till I get the chip. Because the OSATs today, they are not photonics OSAT. They know how to handle electronic chips, but when it's come to photonics, it's a new story. One of the big company CEO told me, Yaniv, don't tell me that you are a chip company before I will see that you can really scale to production.
Yeah.
And this is a key in photonics.
Mahesh, how about for you?
One of the things, first thing that I wake up to is how do we really solve the customer problems, the actual challenges that everybody is facing? And we are specifically in the domain of solving for connectivity. And to this day, even almost 3 billion people are still offline. And with AI coming in, the 5 billion that are connected are experiencing growing bandwidth problems and constraints of affordability, but also more importantly, reliability of the network. So what we are working on is how do we bring technology using lasers and photonics and optics all put together to solve this global vexing problem of connectivity. And so that's been a key driver for me. And it's always about you can go fast, but at the same time, you also run into a lot of hurdles and impediments along the way. So finding that right balance of going fast without compromising on the quality of the product in order to serve the end customer. So always starting out with the customer's viewpoint and the end user's viewpoint is one of the key things that keeps me up.
Okay, thank you. Philippe?
It's a bit different for me. I think so. When I wake up, is to try to convince the European politician that we can make something in Europe, okay? Because as we move all our know in the 1990s, we lose a lot of expertise. And when you have discussion with the European Commission, they ask you, why do you want to produce in Europe? What is a bit contradictory with they want us to bring back sovereignty. Then this is my main concern today. I think so. They believe we are stupid today in Europe. No, we have a lot of innovation, a very lot of good companies with a lot of innovation, but we need to make the step moving from innovation to industrialization. Okay. And my second problem is mass production. Okay. Then today, if I want mass production, we have a lot of companies who are starting making chip. But if today I want to look packaging, I cannot package in Europe. It's impossible. And when I said mass, I speak about million pieces, okay? It's not possible. And the same, I know that the European Commission is working on this. The problem, we cannot wait 5 years, 5 years in telecom is a lifetime, then it's impossible for us. And it's really my two major problems that I have today when I wake up in the morning.
So it's kind of interesting. I mean, all of those problems are kind of like slightly really more internally focused. I mean, okay, maybe Stefan slightly different given where you're running to, but of course they're all tied into sort of like where's the end customer, where's the end market. We're hearing an awful lot about that yesterday. Of do you know exactly where the end markets are? I think starting technology businesses for me is always harder than just starting an ordinary business. And the world's got even harder again, or maybe we're supposed to think of it. It's opened up more opportunities because of geopolitics that's on there. So I think one of the first questions we have to think about is what does it even mean to be sort of European, American, or where you sit? I mean, the world was so global only 5 years ago, and now it seems small. So it would be worth just thinking for a moment of how are those challenges impacting your business, and what do you think? And Herwig, I think it would be good to start with you because there's a lot of talk about we need foundries, we need and you're doing that in Europe. Of course, the issue is can you fill the foundry? Can you get the foundry up in time? Can you fill it? Talk me through what that feels like to you.
As I said in my previous answer, I think the politicians have woken up. Actually, I've had the pleasure in the last couple of weeks to meet with several of them, and they're keenly aware of the shortfalls in Europe, and so they know that we need to secure. Part of the challenge, I think, for the previous owner was a very complicated raw material supply chain that wasn't made easier in the last 12 months, I would say. So for us, they're very aware. They are willing to support large groups in Europe to help rebuild what is now desperately missing. I think other than that, and at least if I look at the wish lists of the engineers that are now hitting the desk, Europe has still got quite an impressive array of machine builders and very innovative people that we will work. So I think it's not all terrible news, but for sure there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, it's often said in Europe, we're really good at innovation, we're not very good at scaling, and we've forgotten how to do production. I walk around lots of places in Europe. I don't see that. I mean, sure. I mean, there's a bigger culture of production in China, but I still see that as something in Europe that's strong.
So, of course, for us, the end market for many of the products here on stage will remain global.
Yeah.
What needs to be protected and better defended is the IP that goes into building those things. And we can do a much better job than we've done thus far.
So, Philippe, what could you use from such a foundry? I mean, would you, if that foundry came up tomorrow by miracle, what would be the first thing that you would turn around and look to move from, overseas back into a European foundry? Is that even possible?
Everything is possible in life. You want to have the willingness to do it. Okay, it's my first answer. The second is clear that it's not possible to bring back 25 years of expertise in 1 year. That means that we will need a bunch of years in front of us to make it, 3 to 5 years, I believe, before we can say that perhaps we bring back 10 or 20% of the production in Europe, what will be a nice big challenge already, okay? But I think so today, in terms of a wafer fab, we have a lot of nice wafer fab. Thank you to the European Commission with the Hack chip, okay, one. I think so this has been starting to roll the ball, okay? Now we have to go to the next step because having a chip is nice, okay? But then with your chips, you need to go to the next step. And as I said, for me, my priority today is packaging, okay? I need packaging, mass production packaging, okay? Because today, if I work in the defense, military, space, or cybersecurity, I need very special packaging that I'm obliged to send back to Asia to produce, okay? What is crazy, we can do it. I will not say it's simple, okay? And nothing is simple in life, but it's easy to make if you want to make it. And sure, if somebody tomorrow come and said, I can make packaging for you, I will be very happy to work with them. Yeah.
Thank you. And Yaniv, I mean, I think I might be a bit unfair here, but, I feel European. There was a moment in time when I lived in America where I felt really European. Israel, I mean, do you feel European, American, or something completely different?
It depends. When it's come to fundraising, we are Americans.
Yeah, of course.
When it's come to European funding, we are European. And I got the EIC Accelerator grant. And at the first time, everything was perfect. The proposal was nice, a lot of innovation. But then one of the examinators said, okay, this company, they have too much money. They don't need the grant. So then I had to explain them that in photonics, you need a lot of money to scale to production and to do innovation. And in the second time, they approved that. And Professor Wim Bogaert, last week in ECOP, he said something very interesting. In Europe, it's called SME. In the US, it's called unicorn.
Yeah. Interesting. Pouya, something very different. I mean, you've made a decision to sort of put a small foundry together yourself. And, there's a lot of people say you should never do that. But actually, in photonics, a lot of companies end up doing that. Can you kind of explain why?
Sure, yes. We built this thin film lithium niobate fab in Tempe, Arizona, because prior to that, everything was, either we were going to use their facilities at universities, or if we wanted to go into volume producers like our friends at Hyperlight, it didn't give us the flexibility and control over the processes. And the processes need to be developed for high performance components for nonlinear photonics that we are leveraging on that. So that was the motivation for taking control over the processes, rapid prototyping as much as we want, very fast and very quick, to be able to respond to the tweaks in the design that we have to do in response to our customers and what they are asking for and all that. So that's been the motivation, to have the full control over it and be able to do rapid prototyping. And the agility, basically, to be able to deliver on that. And also, it is some of this technology that we are working in is sensitive, and from the geopolitical perspective, the U.S. government wants that technology to remain in the U.S. So it made sense for us to build this foundry in the U.S. so that we can also address that part of the market as well. And there was both business and operational motivations for making this decision.
Okay. So, it seems to me that there's a piece that's in here that doesn't get talked about enough, which is kind of operational excellence for whichever stage you're at. The execution has to be absolutely strong to achieve the next stepping stone in a business. It kind of leads me on to the next thing is, you take a look at the US and China, and there seems to be this real trick, as looked at from a European perspective, that there's a company, it's in stealth, and the next thing it's out there and it's got $250 million of orders that it's shipping to, and it's a question as to what is it? What are those key steps that enable companies to scale quickly like that? And I think, Yaniv, it might be worth coming back, starting with you on that, because I think, you have the air of somebody that's going to suddenly one day turn around and say, I've just shipped $250 million of product. So what's the fundamental that you think enables you to sort out all of those problems and run to scaling very quickly?
I think today with the deglobalization process, you need to do it in the US, in Europe, and in the Far East. You need to work with local suppliers to bring them together to build this scale up in production. It's a huge challenge because of all these geopolitics issues. If you want to manufacture in China, you need to bring the chips from the US and then to sell it back to the US. And now we have all the issues with the tariff. So you need to bring your production back to the US and bring it to Europe, to do it in Europe, and then to do it in the Far East, because they don't want the American chips, they want their own chips. So this deglobalization process, it's a real challenge. And this is why we're building our operation in each continent to be able to serve first the local markets, and then from there to try to scale to other markets.
Okay. And tied into this, there's this issue of, do you do this privately or do you do this public? I mean, public, you've got to talk to investors and shareholders. I mean, how much does that get in the way? Was it a good decision, or?
It depends on the time in the year you ask me that question. Now I'm very happy. So being public gives us the opportunity to have access to the public markets, and you can raise large amounts of money, as we showed in the past month. We did good fundraising, and our cash position is around $1.5 billion. So that is very good. But if it was same time last year, I would have had a different perspective. I would public, I have to report every 3 months what I'm doing, what I'm up to and what not, and then it's a different sort of challenge. But in general, I'm happy that we are doing it. We are, as a public company, we are doing it that way. Now, it's not only the access to the capital, but it also brings a discipline on executing on your vision. So from that perspective, you have to plan ahead. You have to know what you're doing, and you cannot just be wishy-washy about it. Yeah. So that is, from that perspective, both from access to the capital and also discipline in execution. Those are the good things that come from being a public company.
And Mahesh, you must have a view on this, given your backgrounds, as to, is it better to be private or public at these earlier stages in the companies? I mean, what's your thought process on that? And also, does that tie in really, really strongly to executing very, very quickly?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of it is public, then you can easily raise capital and go about it. But sometimes it comes with its own set of baggage of trying to deal with the investors and dealing with the market. And if you're in an early stage company, you want to be nimble. So my personal take is to try and be private as much as you can, if you can raise the money and still have the laser focus execution. Now, coming to your other question about how do you actually execute and how do you scale, especially in the photonic space, I think there's a few components that is very, very important. It's easy to build one-off prototypes and then demonstrate it, but to take it and scale it, there are the following ingredients that are necessary. First, you need to make sure that you have a robust supply chain. We call it SPOR. It's the supplier plan of record. So you could have a diverse global supply chain or a local supply chain, but it needs to be robust. So the incoming parts are very of highest level of quality. The second thing is you need to make sure you're designing for manufacturability. What that means is coming up with fixtures, coming up with processes, SOPs, to make sure that you can actually scale at an exponential rate. And then the third thing is the talent itself, like the people who are building it, or it could also be the automation that can be going in, because we have precision, alignment, and everything else has to be done. And so the more you're able to automate it and have the right talent to do this. And these three components are very, very essential. And the last bit is the right kind of funding to be able to do this. And so that goes back to your earlier question of public versus private. But the big difference is having these ingredients in place, which is what is going to be enabling. And that's what China did very well.
Yeah.
And they had all of these things nailed down. So prior to Google, I was at Apple, and this is exactly what we would do.
Yeah.
We'd go in the middle of China, and there's an empty warehouse. Within 15, 20 days, we would have a fully humming factory producing millions of units because we had all of these ingredients in place.
Yeah. I think that's really, really insightful answer. I mean, we could come back to that a lot, I think.
I actually want to add something on the design for manufacturing side. For the photonics industry, that if it's good to design for manufacturing, if the manufacturing is already existent and there is a legacy for it, and it's all good and nice. But many of the photonics technology and many of the products need very novel manufacturing techniques.
Yes.
That in that way, the manufacturing kind of has to be invented and followed. So the design for manufacturing part of that becomes tricky. So you have to have that in mind as well. At what point you design for manufacturing, and at what point you force the manufacturers to come along with you and help you on that.
Yeah. But we should all go back and read what happened in Bell Labs, because Bell Labs back in the day was so good at that point of brand new technology and out of the gate ready for manufacturing. Slightly different flip on this, because Stefan, you kind of your whole way of growing rapidly is kind of more predicated now on M&A. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so for us, we're a private-owned company. We're for the majority family-owned, and I think it gives us, especially right now, the opportunity to get to decisions faster than maybe others can do. It's always a phone call away to make major operational changes. And like you mentioned before, we have this trade war going on between US and China, and that puts pressure on us. We just recently opened the manufacturing facility in China because we changed our diversification strategy to really be local in the market. And that also impacts our philosophy on M&As, is like, how can we, in the current market environment, how can we find new ways, vertical integration to, on the one hand, become more resilient in the supply chain as a number one, but also to become, go vertically towards the customer, go towards the integration into the industrial company lines, and find ways of getting closer to the customer, working on solutions together, and do this on a local level. And we have now manufacturing in China, in Europe, and in the US. And with this diversification, we're really expecting to drive the market by working hand in hand with the customer base.
So we talked about this offline before the panel. There's a pretty well-developed strategy that you have. Some of that you would kind of want to be public. Some of it you'd want to be less public. To the audience and potential players out there that you might be interested in, how would you communicate that desire on your hand to say, hey, come talk to me?
I mean, it's actually events like this. I would say it's trying to find the conversation with our industry peers. It's those conferences, it's exhibitions. So as an example, we're right now talking to a smaller European company that actively approached us at an exhibition, and there you have the chance to discuss one-on-one on where we're heading, how can we learn from each other, can we complement each other. And I think those are the discussions at the first base that you normally have in a good personal setting that then lead to next steps. And this can be an M&A, this can be a strong partnership. I think we all have to be open for different ways. And yesterday we heard a lot of talks about collaborating across the industry. And I'm in the industry since a year, but I think that's kind of the asset this photonics industry brings along, that collaboration is at the heart of it.
Yeah. So I think it's desperately unfair that, we only have an hour to talk with such a diverse group of people. I mean, you are the essence of the photonics industry and how to grow it profitably. Before we throw it open to the panel, just sort of like super 10-second question. Key thing to getting through to cash flow positive is, and growing that cash flow positive operation is sort of adding into the order book. So if I come back along the road, starting with you, Philippe, what would be your one fantasy thing that you'd be able to do and say, okay, I think that takes me to, massively increasing my order book? How do you see that?
Yeah, I say for us to come back in Europe, it's clear it's coming back on the common, it's automatization. Okay, that means it's clear that if you want to be competitive, compared to the manufacturer where they are today, we need really the top-notch automatization. And be in mind that there was 1 week ago a comparison between the investment on robotics, okay? And China was investing 4 times more robotics than Europe and 9 times more robotics than United States. Then the Asiatic people are investing a huge amount in automatization. It's very clear that you have to really design correctly your wafer fab, okay? How you want to process at the beginning, because if you make a mistake, this line costs a fortune. If you want to make a dark room production, then you have to be really, really careful at the beginning how you will design your production line to be sure that you can be after profitable and cash flow positive. Yeah.
So it's the magic wand to create a sort of supply chain infrastructure in Europe.
Yeah, and I just as a comment that nobody discussed about the supply chain earlier. Today we are suffering from this AI giga data center. Perhaps you know, but today if you want to buy laser, it's 1 year delivery time to buy a laser. Okay, that means this is also something bad for us being European because we are small, we are new coming back in the market, and then it's not easy to have access to the supply chain due to this. Yeah. And this is mainly pushed by co-packaged optics. That means all the big guys are very busy and take the full capacity who is available today.
Okay, a really useful input. So Mahesh, but shorter?
Yes, I'll say the most important thing is going to be the supply chain, in my opinion. So that I mentioned about SPOR, which is the supplier plan of record. You always are going to be faced with a decision of make versus buy.
Yeah.
And if you are going to be buying it, are you buying it from who, where, and what price, and how robust is that supply chain? If you mess that up, then I think everything else downstream doesn't matter. So I think that's very, very key.
Okay. I think because of constraints of time, we probably ought to throw this open to the floor for questions. I hope there's a lot of questions.
Robert Harrison, IP lawyer.
For some reason, I always seem to get the question opportunity. So we talked a little bit about the CHIPS Act yesterday and its impact on the photonics industry. And I'm really interested to understand from you within the M&A field, is the sums of money being promised through the various CHIPS Acts in the United States and in the European Union and various other initiatives around the world, is that a blessing for you, free money that's coming in, or is it just basically a little bit of drop, which is not worthwhile going for?
I can reply on my side. I'm waiting the Pillar 2. We have done Pillar 1. Pillar 2 will come in January, where normally it's more in the direction of production, okay, to support the production line, not at the wafer level, but more at the more integrated components. And then we have to see what they will bring in January, okay? And I'm sure there are more the people who can speak about the Pillar 1 here,
Herwig, do you have any view on that? You're in recipient of European Chip Act money?
Yes, and so I think for European Chip Act money, I would say the part that is still a big difference between US and Europe is not just the speed of decision making, but it's the KPIs that the people have that give you the money. And so Europe needs to learn to have a support function rather than necessarily thinking about like a VC fund. They're not a VC fund. They're something entirely different. So it is a blessing to us.
Yeah.
But we certainly have conversations on that level.
Okay. And that's one of the things that always bothers me with Chip Act money and stuff like that is, there's a lot promised, and then when you actually look at what's disposition, that can be quite a different number.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Mike, I think that the CHIP Act is still not considering photonics as a chip.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one of the main problems of the CHIP Act.
So you can start to see that changing. And in fact, there's an initiative in Europe to change it really, really much more fully, but that's maybe for another discussion. But yeah, I completely get that. CHIP Act is electronic and less photonic. And is there
2 nanometers,
going to be a boundary one day? Jose, other questions, please?
Yes, Hamed from Ccraft.
Yes, Ccraft Switzerland. In the context of innovation diffusion and winning early adopters, how do you balance between staying solid focused on delivering your MVP and the pressure of fake it until you make it? Just sorry. Thank you very much.
I'm terrified to put that question to anybody. Does somebody want to take, particularly the fake it till you make it part of it? Mahesh, do you want to have a go at it?
Yeah, I have a take. So typically when you look at product market fit, you look at MVP, but it's an important piece to also factor in what is called as an MVS. It's called as the minimum viable segment. So given all the different areas that you could be attacking, which one segment that you can really go after to make sure that you are finding a repeatable pattern of purchase from that customer. And once you establish that, you may have to fake it till that point, but once you are starting to see the repetitive one, then you'll see a much more higher level of traction before you start expanding into other areas.
Jose?
Yes, I see in the news, Pouya Dianat, that you have $1.3 billion in the bank account. How can we help you spend it?
That's actually 1.5, but yeah. So part of it is we have to scale up, and that means that we have to work with a lot of companies to be able to scale things up. I mean, that's the topic of this panel. Merger and acquisitions is another stated target for this fundraising that we've done. So we are very close to looking at the gaps in our technology that we within the photonics industry we can fill. So I've been having conversation with different people trying to understand where they are, where we are, and we find the fit. So that's part of it. But scaling up the business in operationally and in terms of fab, those are the parts that we need a lot of help. Packaging is a major issue that we want to address, and to be specific. So any packaging solution, anyone in the photonics industry that has would be, I'd love to look at them.
I have a good proposal how to use the money. I started my career 26 years ago in Intel as a CMOS engineer. You have a lot of work to prepare the GDS, but once you send the GDS, you know that you will get probably a good die back. In photonics, you complete the GDS with all the preparation for production, but then you send it to the fab and you start a new project to bring it to a chip. And a good use for the money, and this is, I think, one of the dreams that Thema Foundries bring, is to be able to send the GDS and get the good dice back also in photonics. And I'm challenging the industry to do it and to invest the money in this direction.
The challenge is open. Philippe, Bolle, you have been receiving calls because you are setting up a volume production fab in Europe. So you have been receiving calls from the Netherlands, from France, from Italy. Why Spain?
I would say we are European, okay? Then I would say, as I said, you want to make a dark room production. That means you can make it in any countries. You don't care, I would say, somewhere. Then after the first things, you want to look at the ecosystem. What could you find? Because first is the ecosystem to be sure that in the future you will find the supply chain you need. Number two, you are looking at the talents. Okay, if you have no talents, then you have no innovation. Then it's very important to go in a country when you can find a spread of talent, not just one dedicated talent, but more spread talent. Okay, and number three, I will say how you are accepted by the country, because there are some countries who have been already spending a lot of time and money to develop an ecosystem, and there are other countries who are just starting to develop an ecosystem. And when I've been looking mainly between Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Spain, and I will say that by comparing the different countries, Spain was very attractive. And then the last point, but not least, it's a clean room in Europe. Yeah. It's a nightmare. If you want to make a clean room in a very short time, because I'm driven by customer. As I told you, I'm agnostic of my optical engine, and then I need to find a building and a clean room to put my production. this is a nightmare, okay? You know, if we speak energy, it's years, and clean room, I can tell you it's years. As soon as you go for minimum 1,000 square meter, it's impossible. And I found all this answer to my question here in Spain. I've been very well accepted by the municipality, by the provinces, by the state. That means this is the reason why we decided to come in Spain, yeah.
Who else is thinking of coming to Spain? I'm coming to you, Stephen Kotowski. We have been talking a lot about your plans. Why would you consider ramping up in Europe and also in Spain?
Oh, well, I'm looking at the difference in cost between the United States, and if I do the economics right, I want to hire a silicon photonics guy in Silicon Valley. It's $275,000 a year. I can make that cheaper. I can go to Rochester, New York, and get down to about $165,000 a year. If I come to Spain, there are incentives. The government has good incentives. There are very nice tech business parks here in Malaga and other places in Spain. And if you look at the cost of getting an engineer here, you include it, it's below $90,000 a year. So the economics are good, and they have bright people here, good universities. So there's a good business case to come to Spain.
So, Jose, I think we're at the end of questions. I want to say thank you very much to the panel. But before that, Jose introduced us as sort of like very, very strong in M&A. We haven't really talked about M&A very much at all. And the trick is that good M&A and good fundraising comes from superlative execution. And I hope everybody should take away from the panel is this team is understanding and got its arms around how to execute. Thank you very much. If you'd give the panel a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's where we conclude coverage of this panel on YouTube. There are another 6 panel sessions in this series. And don't forget to take advantage of early bird deals and exhibition space for your company during the 3rd edition of the Global Photonics Economic Forum. It will be held in Malaga, September 24th and 25th, 2026, in the same venue as ECOP.